Welcome to Dementia-Friendly Prince George's County, Maryland Northern Sector webinar series for caregivers. Today's topic, Reaching Up for Comfort by Karen Weaver, is part of our author series. This video is sponsored by Prince George's County Government and the Department of Family Services.
Hello, hello, hello. My name is Karen Weaver, and I am so happy to be with you this evening to share about my book, Reaching Up for Comfort. And I just want you to know that this book was written as my therapy. It was not written to be any type of practical guide. It was therapy, and it was my hope. My hope was always to inspire other caregivers that they might take the time to share their own stories. And as you already know, it has some of my caregiver experiences, it has questions, it has prayers, but it also has scriptures in it. And so, I'm hoping that in some way you will be inspired and maybe take the time to share your own story. So, who am I? This would be how I would describe myself and maybe how others would describe me. I would say currently, right now, my two big roles are caregiver. I'm caring for my husband, and you'll find out more about his health challenges soon, and for my dad. And then I also serve as a life and career coach, which I thoroughly enjoy, and I consider myself a caregiver advocate because I do quite a bit of supporting other caregivers since I've been on this journey for such a long time. The presentation was really created based on the flow of my book. It doesn't include a recap of every chapter in the book, but most of the chapters. And you will see some of the main themes and some of the questions asked in the chapters. Um, I'm a coach, so I talk in terms of questions because I always think that in order to get the answer, you have to figure out what is the right question. And I've also added like a lesson learned to each of the charts as well. So the calling. I'm coming from a Christian perspective, and calling is something that's very common in the Christian tradition. We know many people in the Bible who were called, and after becoming a caregiver, I realized that there were many situations where I was placed before I became a caregiver, where I had the opportunity to care for other people. And these could be friends, they could be family, or even strangers. And then over time, I realized that everyone can't be a caregiver. It's really not something that's suited for everyone's personality. It's really a calling. And I realized that sometimes, I guess I look at it from the perspective of some things we are called to do for a lifetime and some things we are called to do for a season. So, um, caregiving has been a part of my life for quite a long time, but I do consider it just to be a season in my life. The setup. I think that every caregiver probably remembers that one day, that one moment. You can go back and you can remember when you became a caregiver, when everything just suddenly changed. And my husband had a massive stroke when he was 39. And I can still see that evening. I still remember him coming home from work, it being late. I remember going to bed, and I remember him falling out of bed. Now, my husband is quite the jokester, so I actually thought he was playing. And so I realized that he couldn't talk, he couldn't get up, and this ended up in a long evening at the hospital that went into the morning, many phone calls, prayers being sent out, a prayer tree created, and finally he got a little bit more stable and he was sent to critical care. And the thing I can really take away from this is flexibility goes a long way. And I say this because I am a planner and I am used to a lot of structure and I do everything possible to prepare for what's coming along. But certainly if I had not been flexible, I don't even know if I would have made it through even this piece of the journey. Because that night they told me that my husband was going to pass. And my husband is still here today. So Kendrick and Karen meet. So I'm sure some people would wonder, well, we don't really need to know about you and your husband meeting, but I wanted people to really understand how our relationship in the seventh grade really had a great impact on how I serve and care for my husband on this journey. I mean, our friendship has really helped to make the journey a little lighter. And as you know, being a caregiver, sometimes the people that we are caring for, they're not having their best days. Sometimes we are not having our best days. And sometimes things are said, sometimes things are done, feelings get hurt. But I can honestly say that our relationship has really served us well in supporting us to be able to get through many of the challenges and struggles that we've encountered along the way. The healing journey continues. Um, After Kendrick got out of the hospital, it was time for him to go to rehab. And as you may know, I don't know if anybody's had this experience before, but when you're ready to go to rehab, you don't have a lot of time to make a choice. So I visited about 6 or 7 before I decided to have him transferred to Mount Vernon Rehab in Virginia. And I picked the facility because I wanted him to be around younger people, and his roommate ended up being someone who had a head injury as a result of a bike accident. And of course, it really helps to make phone calls before you select rehab. Um, Back in 1995, we didn't have half as much information or access to the internet as we have today. I mean, today you can Google things, you can get reviews, but certainly, having the conversation with someone on the phone, or if you even know people who have been a patient at a certain rehab center, I think that goes a long way in helping you to decide which facility to place your loved one at. And that could be for rehab or it could be for assisted living. And then when you look at these questions, what have you learned from the healing journey? I think that as Kendrick was being healed, certainly I was being healed as well. And healing, of course, comes in many different forms, but certainly when someone has a healthy vent, it impacts everyone that's close to the person. It's not just the person being on the journey by themselves. So the big takeaway is research centers before you visit. The wilderness. So when it was time for Kendrick to come home, I was really frightened. I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect or how I was going to manage. I was working full time. Our sons, they had a very active schedule. One was in junior high, one was in high school, trying to prepare for college. And we had to get the house handicap friendly, which was a job in itself. And I really started to think about Moses and the Israelites and what being in the wilderness must have been like. And I really just didn't know what I didn't know. and I really didn't know what I needed to know. It was really like a strange and foreign land for me and for Kendrick. And I think it was a strange and foreign land for our children as well. My parents were a big help, and Kendrick's brother was great at helping us, get the ramp in place, and supporting Kendrick, and trying to do some things with him, driving him around to give him some activity instead of being home all of the time. But everything was really out of whack. Everything, including our finances, our schedule, everything. Um, and I think the big takeaway for me was that we were going to enter a new norm. Whether we liked it or not, a new norm was coming. So things come together. So our family did find a new norm after Kendrick's stroke. And when we talk about the whole new norm thing, I think it's a matter of having to really change your mindset. And I think the longer we try to make things the same, the longer it takes to get to the new norm. Because once that event has happened, things will never be exactly the same. Kendrick was never the same after a stroke. I was never the same. Nothing that was going on in our lives was ever the same. But things did get better. It just was different from what we were used to. And I had a track club actually sort of adopted my younger son and helped him to, continue to be active. They were flying him all over the United States to track meets. And I was doing the best that I could to help my older son prepare for college. And there were so many places that I wanted to take him, but I really couldn't do everything that I wanted to do. But somehow he did find his fit, and I feel very grateful and thankful that that did happen. Another storm. I love this picture because it so describes what I was feeling. I mean, after Kendrick's stroke, I thought, oh, well, we've had all that we're going to have for the lifetime. But another storm was actually on the way. And when you think about another storm, I want to know that this resonate with anyone. I mean, sometimes you feel overwhelmed, disappointed. I mean, it's just a range of emotions when you can see that something else is going to happen and you have to prepare for it. But sometimes it just takes all the energy you have to just try to just, stay above water. So this storm, Kendrick lost kidney function. So here we were, he had already had a massive stroke, and now he had lost kidney function, which meant that he would have to go on dialysis. And so it was a great reminder for me that things can change very quickly. And it was also a great reminder that just because we had been through this months and months of trying to get settled after his stroke, it didn't mean that that was the end of it. We really sort of had to toughen up and prepare ourselves for what needed to happen as a result of him losing his kidney function. So God's compassion, we waited. We waited for a kidney, and we had no idea what the process was about. We were learning. We went to the transplant clinic. We didn't know how long we would be on a list. we really had no idea what it really meant to be in this process. And so at one point, some of Kendrick's siblings, they said that they would go get tested, but I don't think anyone ever really went to get tested. And we had no idea where the kidney was going to come from. And I really learned a lot about waiting, how to wait, and what it means to wait, and that the waiting is a part of the healing process. And then our son, our oldest son, he was in college and he went to Washington Hospital Center and he got tested. Now, this was about 3 years after Kendrick had his stroke, so this was now in 1998. And our oldest son was like a 5 out of 6 match, and he decided to give his father the kidney after school ended. So he basically gave his father a kidney during the summer break, which was just amazing for us. So in the process of him giving my husband a kidney, they discovered that they did not completely close off all of the arteries in my son's body. And they knew this because when they took the kidney to put it in Kendrick's body, they realized that they had missed something for my son. So my son had to have another surgery. I can't even explain to you how overwhelming that was. Um, it was overwhelming for me, but I didn't think my mother was going to make it because that was like her first grandchild. And I kept thinking we brought this healthy young adult into the hospital, and certainly we wanted him to be healthy when he left so that he would be able to go back to school. But there are always going to be unknowns on the caregiver journey. And of course, most of these unknowns are going to be things that are out of our control. And I thought about the Moses when he was really turning the responsibility of the Israelites over to Joshua, and he was explaining to him that the Lord is going to be with you, and that you just need to be courageous and not be afraid. And I'm going to tell you though, that was a thought process that I had writing the book after all this was over. I was not thinking that during the time that our son was having the second surgery. But it all worked out, and we were very blessed that both of them were able to come home healthy, and my son is still very healthy to this day. Embrace the new season. So in 2007, my mom started to have um, health issues, and she passed out in the kitchen. We basically got her to the hospital, and they told us that she needed to have a pacemaker. Unfortunately, at the time, there were some other complications while she was in the emergency room, and she actually vomited and swallowed, and some of this got into her lungs. So it ended up her lungs were compromised, and before we had finished the whole experience, she also lost kidney function as a result of just being put on too much medication to try to get the fluid off of her body. So this was a whole nother new area for me because I was, supporting my husband already, and my parents were a big part of my support system. And now, I had to, start focusing my attention on what was going on with my mom. So do the best you can. So my mom went to rehab and she was able to come home, but it was so hard. She never could come to grips with the fact that she could not wait on my father anymore. She could not take care of him. We needed her to focus on herself, but she really never got to the point where she could focus on her health. She continued to try to take care of my father and do things for other people. And she really just did not have the same capacity that she had had before. And unfortunately, she kept trying, and she was also on oxygen by that time. And she kept trying and trying until she really got to the point where she couldn't do anything. And basically, my dad was taking her back and forth to dialysis. I was cooking for them at one point 7 days a week, and I was working, and my mom just really could not make the shift that we needed to do something different. So it became a little challenging, even down to like, she wanted to go to the hairdresser and she wanted her hair a certain way. And so, but I did the best I could do with it. But all those things do come with a cost. And sometimes you really have to learn how to have conversations with people so that you can make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you'll be able to support them. Grieving is a process. So my mom passed in 2012, and I think the big takeaway from this experience was that there have been so many little losses along the way, and whether we realize it or not, just losing the way that relationship used to be is a part of loss. It's a part of grieving. So I had been experiencing loss as a result of my husband and loss as a result of things that have happened to my mom. But of course, someone passing is just a whole nother grieving process in itself. It's even bigger. So honor your parents. I think I pretty much have said before, my parents had really high expectations, and they really expected me to take care of them. And I really wasn't able to always do everything exactly the way they wanted it. And after my um, mom had passed, my dad was living in the home by himself, and I tried to support him as best I could. And probably with my dad is very much a chauvinist, pretty much, and I think he believes that women are here for the convenience of men, but it has been a labor of love taking care of my dad, and in many ways, I know that it would be something very pleasing to my mom. So let go. This is just a reminder that don't be surprised when others don't help you. And it could be the most obvious of people, your siblings, a good friend, the person who you're caring for. But it doesn't always work out that way. And it's really important to just let go, because letting go of hurt, disappointment, frustration is for our well being. And it doesn't do us any good if we're always in a state of um, feeling bad about what other people are not doing that we think that they should be doing. Dad got a new car. If anybody has been through this experience, this is one that I will never forget. My brother helped my dad buy a new car. So my dad had two cars, and I had already been trying to get him to stop driving. And I hid car keys. I brought the car keys home. I wrote a letter to motor vehicle. I did all sorts of things to try to get my dad to stop driving. And all I can say is sometimes you have to make some tough decisions, but this was probably one of the most challenging pieces for me in dealing with my dad. So my dad started showing signs of memory issues in 2014. He called me up and said that he had a lot of money coming back from his taxes, but he wanted me to come and check them, which was strange for my dad because he's very good with numbers. And he had made an error, but I didn't think anything of it. But after a while, my dad started asking me the same questions over and over. We were having the same conversations, and he was finally diagnosed in 2015. And I was troubled. I was afraid. I was afraid for him, and I was afraid for myself because I really didn't know what that meant at all. But I did learn from that experience that I would need some support because I was already taking care of my husband, so I knew I was going to need some support. Jesus is always the same. That's the one thing I can depend on. When my dad moved in with my husband, myself, I really had no idea what it was going to look like to be able to share your space. And we have a very comfortable home. My dad got 2 bedrooms, one for sleeping and one for his bike. And he did have a computer when he first came, but he has since this time he's not really able to work on the computer. But it was quite a challenge trying to make the adjustment of what that would look like and how my husband and I would actually still have our own life in the midst of incorporating another person. And then, of course, with my dad having a lot of special needs now because he's really only eating 1 meal a day, it became a little challenging, but one day at a time. And we've been able to get through it. So don't worry about tomorrow. So my dad had to have prostate surgery, and as a result of that, he also has stage 4 prostate cancer. So we have been doing everything possible to help to maintain his health, but sometimes I've learned that you just kind of have to go with the flow because again, I'm a planner, but sometimes things don't quite go the way we would like them to go. My dad also had skin cancer at one point, and I really struggled with just the care of the wound when they had to remove the skin cancer. And I'm very thankful for caregivers who've come into my home who helped me with that process. But there's always going to be one more thing. There's always going to be things that we're not expecting that will come up because the human body just is a very complex. And I think the best takeaway is that we just need to learn to take care of ourselves because there will always be something going on that needs to be tended to. Be mindful of what you're saving. If anybody's ever cleaned out a house, I'm going to tell you, I just applaud you. I cleaned out my dad's house. It took me about a year. And the only thing that I could remember as a result of that experience was that I did not want to leave my children in that situation. So I am known for decluttering, decluttering, decluttering. I think it's really important to take inventory of what you're not using and what you can get rid of because you be surprised at how much you can accumulate over a period of 20 to 30 years. Enjoy the journey. I don't think there's anything funnier than the challenges of traveling with loved ones who require care. This is a picture of my husband and my dad when we went to Williamsburg. And I mean, they didn't want to do anything but eat and just sit in their rooms and watch TV just like they do when they're at home. So I would just say humor goes a long way, and it's really important to um, use humor and laugh at yourself as well, because there are so many things that are going to be challenging. If you don't find some humor in it, it will really start to eat at you. So I hope all of you are at least finding something that you can laugh about that is humorous about your journey. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to share with you this evening. And you can find out more about me at my website, karenweaver.net, or you can reach out to me at karen@crosswalk.com. Thank you again.